All right, welcome everybody to this episode of Breaking Absolutes. I am Peter Orullian. This is my show. This is really mostly conversation that I get to have with artists that I think are doing really important work inside the rock and metal genre, such that it deserves a broader audience. So I like to have these conversations to dimensionalize these artists in service of hoping that we'll bring more listeners, because I think the music is, while it's does a fantastic job of appealing to its core audience, it's got more legs than that. And so, in interest of that, today I get to talk to Simone Mullerone. I don't have a fantastic Italian accent, so it doesn't sound as sexy when I say it as when he says it. But today we're gonna talk to Simone, who I want to set up a little bit for you in case it's a name you're unfamiliar with. So he originally founded, did all the writing and composition, and was the guitarist for his band called empYrios. I'll be honest, I wasn't familiar with this band, but when I convinced Simone to come on the show to talk to me, I went and listened to this music. And I'm going to tell you a little fun little story. As soon as I had gotten pretty far into it, I sent him a note and I said, I think for want of one element, this band would have exploded. And we'll talk about that when we get to that part of his career. A lot of folks will probably know him best for his work with DGM. He joined that band midstream, but really in some ways put a stamp on it that took it to new places. He does their composition. He's obviously the guitar player, and that brought him, I think, a lot of notoriety that led to other things. He has, with DGM, they did some really great touring. I mean, they've toured all over the world, but they supported Symphony on the Iconoclast tour. It's just an example of the sort of nod from other progressive metal acts who recognized the quality of the material and wanted to, bring it to new audiences. The most recently, I saw this just yesterday, I think, Mark Zonder did a shout out. They were looking for someone to engineer the new A to Z record. And I'll paraphrase, but he looked across 8 different engineers to do that production work, from guys who had won all kinds of awards to folks they knew, but maybe didn't have quite the reputation, and just then listened back to what they heard. And they chose Simone for the new A to Z record. I see that says something. I think that says something. That's Zonder and Realder pairing back up again to do some really great music. We're going to get to a lot of this stuff, but just quickly to give you a teaser, he's worked with Redemption, Leilu, Sunstorm. He wrote the first Sweet Oblivion record that Geoff Tate sang on. He's worked with Leone Conte, I hope I'm saying that right, duo, which is a lot like that Alan Yorn duo with 2 great vocalists kind of just doing amazing work. And in a few days, the new Michael Romeo record, which I had Michael on the show not too long ago. Simone is the guy behind the engineering board on that record and did a fantastic job, and we'll talk to him about that. There's a lot more, but I wanted to give you a flavor of the man before we bring him on. But let's do that now and have the conversation. Simone, welcome.
Hey, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, man. I really wasn't so familiar with your name. I think DGM, which we'll get to in a minute, is a criminally under recognized band. I did a very short stint, by which I mean one rehearsal for a Dream Theater cover band. We were just kind of goofing around, and but the guy in that, the keyboard player, mentioned you guys. I said I've never heard of them, and then I went and found your music and was just floored. So whoever's doing publicity for you guys could probably do more. But then when you and I got talking, and just so you know, the genesis of this is after I did the Michael Romeo interview, I was kind of looking at the team, and I found your name there, and I just reached out. You were very gracious to talk to me about a number of things. And when I started to realize how much amazing music that we all listen to, you've touched, either as a guitarist or a composer or as a producer and engineer, I was kind of blown away. And so then eager to have you on the show. So that's my backstory. So again, thank you and welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Let me know real quick up front. Do you have any time constraints so I can be sure I'm managing?
No.
Okay.
No. Just
we won't go forever, but I need to know if I need to cut it off somewhere so that I know how to.
No problem.
Because I've got 6 pages of notes, my friend.
Oh wow!
when I started going through the music, of course, this scratches a particular itch for me because it's a kind of music that I love, but there was so much to commend itself, and so I just, anyway, I'll be judicious with the time, but I wanted to know up front. So you began life as a in music. With empYrios, but one of the things that's been a constant behind the scenes, I think, and you can keep me honest on this, is you've always been working as sort of an engineer and producer, have you not, from the very beginning?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, I think it was the reason why I became an engineer and a producer was basically because I was searching for a place to record my very first EP, like the demo that you give to the label to search for the contract and whatever. Like every band in the world did this, right? So I remember when I was kind of 17 or 18, we formed a band with the school friends, like schoolmates. And I needed a singer, so I found a singer in the next classroom, and then I needed a drummer, and I found, like usual stuff. But then we had this big studio. I mean, not big studio, this studio that everybody was going to like 1 hour from my hometown, but it was like booked forever, like for 1 year. And we didn't want to wait. So I was messing around with computers, like, like the first sound cards, like Sound Blaster, I guess it was called.
Yeah.
You could record like 1 track.
Yeah.
And I was already back then like messing with the MIDI files, like programming backing tracks and stuff like that. And then I decided to why don't I record myself, even if it's like a new thing for me. So I started, like to contact friends. And back then, I'm not that old, but back then there wasn't like the Google to search things and presets and stuff like that. So it was like, I remember it was like a shitty demo with a few tracks, but it was my first experience, and I enjoyed. Actually, like now, like 20 years later, I still enjoy half of my time playing and recording music, and the other half like producing and mixing. It's the same. It's a balance that I like to keep. Between the both worlds. So
yeah. Well, you've had
the band started. Yeah, the band started at the same time as my passion for recording and mixing. Basically.
Well, you've had by all accounts, you've had equal parts success at both, which is really unique. And I think that your name is growing, and it's because I think it is. I think the work is commending itself to more and more artists. And we'll get into some of that as we start going through the music. But I have to know, I mean, this is kind of a remedial question, but what was the entry point? What was the gateway for you into rock and metal? Was there was it an instrument? Was it a particular influence that set you on this path?
I think it was because my father plays guitar. He has a band. He is playing like 70s kind of rock, like Eric Clapton kind of thing. And I grew up surrounded by those vinyls, and he's a big fan of Deep Purple and Rainbow. Yeah, and that's not heavy metal, but that's my first. And I still remember the first Van Halen LP, that he was pinning every day at home. So I was always surrounded by that. But I remember until I started playing guitar. So until I was like 16 when I started, I was more into pop. Like I'm still a big fan of Michael Jackson. He's one of my favorite artists. I know every song like word by word. But then when I started playing guitar and I was learning all the Deep Purple songs, tunes, and like all the 70s rock. I think that led me to maybe my guitar teacher at the time. He played me some Yngwie and Steve Vai, all the guitar heroes from the 80s and 90s, and that was my like mind-blowing for me. Like, oh, people can really play like that. I was like, struggling with two notes, trying to mimic all the riffs. And then from there, like meeting friends and at school and university later on, I met a lot of friends. Somebody was more into the heavy side, my bass player, and still my buddy, Simone from empYrios. And he was more into Fear Factory, Nevermore, like all the heavy things. And we were constantly exchanging records like, hey, you have to listen to this Queenstrikes band. Oh, I never heard of him. And then, but basically, I think it was the Guitar Heroes thing. And that was, I really stopped loving the only instrumental music after a few years. I got bored because now I like songs, even if it's like 20-minute songs, progressive, but with a lot of instrumentals. But I still like to have and to listen to the choruses, big choruses, and melodic.
Yeah.
So I think the major breakthrough was like Yngwie, and later on when I discovered Dream Theater and Symphony X, pretty much at the same time. It was early 2000, so like I still remember the first show of Dream Theater. I saw the Scenes from a Memory tour, and it was mind-blowing, like absolutely killer. And maybe I went to more towards Symphony X because they had this like heavier, like heavier side, and my favorite singer is Russell since forever.
Yeah.
So those bands are mainly like Yngwie in the beginning, and then Symphony X are my main breakthrough. And I skipped all the, like the classic, like Iron Maiden, Metallica. I was never, every metalhead of my age was starting listening by Megadeth and Metallica. I really skipped that part. I know every song by now, because
Sure.
it's impossible to not know the songs, but I was more in the technical, like progressive shredding kind of things in the beginning.
Yeah. I had much the same journey. I was listening to a lot of new wave music, Tears for Fears and Duran Duran and bands like that. And then all of a sudden I heard what was really popular in the United States was what is now sort of known as hair metal. And
Okay.
I started listening to some of those groups. They were all over the radio, but it was only a very short amount of time before I heard Queensryche, and it was game changing, mostly because I love the music, but because the vocal approach was different. And so I skipped a lot of the stuff that seems foundational, that I know now, of course.
Yeah.
But so I get it. And I share a lot of those same tastes. Let's start talking about your music, and let's start with empYrios. So you kind of described this was friends, your high schoolers, you decide you're going to put together a band. And you did a number of albums. There are a number of trade magazines that described you guys as best newcomers. Really saw you as emerging pretty powerfully on the scene. In that band, am I right that the compositional duties were largely yours, or is it more collaborative?
No, it was like it's a story of all my career as a musician. I was never able to find someone to. Let's put it the other way, the real way. Like, I'm too control freak on things, and I was so prolific at the time. That was always my project. It started like every song was I just wrote the song in my room, and then programming the drums, and then playing the bass, and then programming the keyboards. So it was mainly my thing. But then, initially it was really like schoolmates. Then after a few years, we changed the lineup a little bit, and we founded this great, amazing drummer, Dario, that now lives in New York, and from that point, it became a little bit more professional. So we were exchanging more ideas, and so the more we grew up as a band, the more it was a collaborative effort, you know. Like, but I gotta say, like 90% of the time, it was my song.
Yeah.
In a good or a bad way. I mean, it's not like good songs or bad songs.
So does that extend to the vocals too, the vocal lines and lyrics?
No, I mean, the lyrics always has been my, I do say in English, my weaker point. I was never able to write good lyrics. And so when I talk about composition, I'm always talking about music and vocal lines. I mean, vocal lines, I always, even with DGM, I always like to write them together with the singer, because to me, it's crucial that the singer sing stuff that he wrote, because otherwise you end up writing, you know, like too high notes, too low notes, and it's a struggle for the singers sometimes. So, I mean, I always want to be present when we write vocal lines, but I always listen to the singer. If he tells me, oh no, maybe this one is too high, let's find something different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always wrote pretty much everything except for the lyrics, because my bass player in empYrios, Simone, was writing all the lyrics together with the drummer. Same now with DGM, bass player and drummer, they're writing the lyrics. I don't know if it's a common theme, you know, like bass players and drummers write lyrics, but it is in my story, at least.
I think I heard the story that Ozzy does that. It's just known, if you're doing an Ozzy record, if you're the bass player, you're gonna write the lyrics.
Okay, so it's a
thing. I'm happy to hear the way you describe the vocalist part, because when I've been in a number of bands, I always say, when if I'm coming into band or forming a band, it's hard to get emotionally invested in vocal lines, and for me, lyrics, because I'm also a writer, that I'm not a part of creating. And you also don't know, unless you're the vocalist, you know, how the lines are going to work with your voice. So I appreciate, like, having that awareness is really great. I'm sure there are other bands that do that, but I know bands that don't. They just write it, and then the singer's expected to, you know, just to do it, whether or not it's a good fit for the voice, or whether the singer has different ideas about it. So I love the latitude that you provide there. Let's talk about some of the music. The very, very first record is called "And the Rest Is Silence." Are you a Shakespeare fan?
No, actually, no. I mean, not that I'm a fan. Not that I'm not a fan. It's just basically I probably read nothing from him. So it's like.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is I was a English major, so I had plenty of literature courses, and I read most of Shakespeare, and that line those are the last words that Prince Hamlet utters in the play Hamlet. He says, you know, the rest is silence. So I just
probably my bass player.
There you go.
That, so
yeah, well, kudos to him. It's a cool cool name. The other thing I noted about your records, and this extends to DGM, and this is, you know, maybe this seems like a passing sort of acknowledgement, but the cover art seems thoughtful. You know, I don't know if you have an art director, or if you have concepts for what you want those to be, or if you've had help. But so many of the records, particularly progressive records, they seem like these sort of strange abstracts with imagery that they don't really relate to each other, and they just seem sort of photoshopped together in a very poor way. The art, the first thing I noticed is the cover artwork, like, made me stare at them and think a little bit. Is that a consideration you have? Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, absolutely, you nailed the point, because to me, I mean, I'm really a newbie in graphics and stuff like that, but I was lucky enough in empYrios, because all the cover art in empYrios were made by my singer back then, Silvio, and nowadays is one of the most successful, like, art director in Italy. is doing a big, big promotions for big companies, like videos, marketing stuff. And the same Simone, the bass player, which he did probably the majority of the DGM covers, even if it's not in DGM. But we're all friends. We're all like a team of friends. And we always had the luck to find the way to express to the cover artists the thoughts behind the songs and the themes. So the only times that I remember one of the first or one or two records that we did with DGM, the first one, and the label was forcing us to use a guy, you guys have to use that guy for the cover. And it was, we were basically imposed the cover from above, right? And those are the covers that I'm not happy with, because it's like you said, like maybe a good image, a good Photoshop medley, but it's not what we wanted. So, or some other times, I remember we did a cover with DGM. It's totally white with just a domino,
That's a great one.
And it's super minimal.
Yeah.
And I remember fighting with the label. Oh, you should have, not dragons, but you should have all this fantasy kind of thing, because it's power metal, and we were like, no, we have the songs have a meaning. Maybe we're not the best expressing the meaning through the lyrics, basically, I think, because we're Italians, and it's really difficult for us to express every nuance with the lyrics. But I mean, I know when I write some music, I have a visual in my head, so I don't imagine when I play a riff like the dragon holding a sword, even if I have all the raps of the album and I'm a big fan, but it's not what I envision when I write myself.
Yeah. So
we were always lucky, I think, to find the right guys, and it's easier for me if you know the guy personally, so you can. I remember for the latest DGM album, we were at the restaurant with the guy, like talking, hey, what do you guys want? Oh, maybe we should talk about this path of and blah blah blah, and the first cover that came up was the right one, so it's easier.
Yeah, I wanted to. For some people, this kind of thing doesn't matter, but I'm a very visual person. I used to spend the first 30 minutes of every day just looking at imagery, whether it's photographs or paintings or sketches, because I just find really good work inspiring. So like when I was looking, I half expected, because you're sort of a progressive metal band, the sort of same kind of cheesy cover that a lot of them get. And it wasn't that. Like with this one, there's this suggestion in And the Rest is Silence. There's this suggestion of a skull. It's not like all drawn out with definitive lines, but it's present there. But then inside one of the eyes, there's something that's vaguely reminiscent of some sort of nuclear explosion. There's some sort of suggestive thing inside one of the sockets. The articulation of the title is kind of subtle. Like there's so much in that, but it's so artfully put together that it was fun for me just to spend some time looking at it. And you mentioned the DGM cover with the dominoes, and the name of the album is Momentum. I started thinking about the name of the album and the fact that these dominoes are falling, and at the end you've got this silhouetted figure trying kind of to escape. It seems like he's pressed up against the glass, like this momentum is somehow going to crush him. Like those are really cool concepts. Like it's almost the kind of thing you would expect from a progressive metal band, who's by and large usually lyrics and approach are more considered than other styles of rock and metal. So I guess that's just a way of me saying kudos. I think it's cool that you spent some energy on that, because for some of us that really matters. Okay, in the actual first record here, one of the things I noted, okay, so you've got your vocalist has this approach. He does some of the sort of screamo stuff sometimes, and then sometimes he's, more traditionally singing. And he's really good. And with all due respect, the thing that I think I noticed here is he's a really good singer, but that sometimes it was and this is an opinion, I felt like he didn't sort of match the band as well.
Exactly.
And there's a little part of my brain, this is what I sent you the note about, that said, and it's hard. Lineups are hard to get the chemistry and all of those. But I thought, man, one little bit different element here on the mic, and I think that everybody would know the name empYrios. That's how good I think that music was.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I don't mean that as any sort of slight on anybody, because finding right players and the right chemistry and all of that, and I think there's a element of luck in all music. Who knows? I remember talking to John Petrucci once, and he said, I probably wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't for Pull Me Under, because it, got on the radio and, was kind of a hit for a while on the radio.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't know that was going to be a hit. So there's a certain degree of luck in there. But I was just really, the music of empYrios was, in some ways for me, it was the best of what progressive kind of means, because I had the spirit of invention inside it. It wasn't predictable in the kinds of things that you did, and it was always unique. You have, my friend, I'm calling it the Simone signature, and that is there's a lot of things you do that I've decided are characteristic of your composition. But one of the things that you do very artfully is intros, and you do them in a wide variety of ways that bring you into a song by setting a mood and a feeling. And that began with your earliest work. Is that something that you think about, or is that just an instinctive songwriting?
No, I mean, it's just instinctive, as you said, because I never, sometimes I remember my bass player now in DGM. He always tells me, "Oh, you should change the intro, because it's always, every song starts like with the guitar." And I was like, "Oh, you're right." Like the rock and roll slide. While some other times I have like this 2 minutes set up with electronics and whatnot. So I guess it's depending on the mood. I think with empYrios I was experimenting way more, because we were no one. So we didn't have a story. Like with DGM, when I joined the band, it was different. They had already quite a few albums, and they toured already. So I did whatever I wanted anyway, but in that kind of music. So it was not like no growls, no electronics, more like classic progressive. Like more standard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there's a rule. Sometimes I like big intros, and some other times I like straight away into the riff. And
yeah. I'm not suggesting that you do it all the time. Sometimes they start out just strong or heavy or bombastic. But there's a decent number of them where there's a kind of intro that starts with different effects, picking patterns. Sometimes this kind of this radio effect, like you're hearing something from a distance. Yeah. You have all of these approaches that you use and have done it across so many different records, and I love it. I mention it because I love it. It breaks the mold of a lot of way songs start, because it's not just anyway, it was go ahead.
I think that's also I was thinking now, maybe because I'm also a producer and a mixing engineer, so I really find myself experimenting with plugins, with effects, and that probably most of the time leads to, I'm trying this new effect with this band that I'm mixing. Why don't I write a line using that effects with my songs? Most of the times, or another time I listen to some keyboards or some stuff that a band sends me, and then I'm asking to the guy, how you did that? I use this. I do this with Romeo all the time. Every time I'm mixing his own stuff, how you did this? Like having the luck to ask him, to be able to ask him what he's using. And then I really try to incorporate what I learned in my music. And this is going on since forever, since the beginning.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it works. I grew as I was listening, because I started at the beginning of your career and listened to pretty much everything. And I grew to have this eagerness for how is he going to open this next tune. It's just a fun thing.
Okay.
It's a fun thing. Not all songwriters sort of think creatively in the same way about that. Just because I don't want to get stuck forever just on And the Rest is Silence, I'll just, for folks who are unfamiliar with empYrios, this particular record, there's tracks like Prelude to the Sleepless Tragedy that's got this beautiful piano part. There's a song called, I don't know if this is Italian, it's Eal. Yeah,
it was a sort of like, I sang that one actually. It's me singing that song.
There you go.
That's the only time in my life that I was brave enough to sing something, and then because it's not Italian. It was like a how do you say in English? Like a war game word. Okay. When you like, it was a name of a guy, of a girl. I don't know. But yeah, that album is really, for me, it's not an album because it was basically the demo that we did. And then it was released. So I always consider my career starting from the Glorious Sickness. That's the album we did later.
Well, that's, and I respect that, but I think that for fans of this genre of music, I think that this demo is really good. There's on this Al tune, there's this sort of grand. The word is grand. It had this grand feeling, this ethos inside it, with strings and acoustic guitar. It was beautiful. The tune Far Cry, it's got this really cool acoustic guitar thing with this, like, it sounded like a Moog synth sound over it. It was just really, the pairing was really cool. I couldn't think of another song I'd heard the pairing like that of instruments. So anyway, there's a lot to commend it there, but let's fast forward to The Glorious Sickness. Another cover that, it's pretty powerful. There's a woman on the cover. She's not nude, but you can see a lot of her skin. You can see power plants or nuclear reactors in the background. It's very evocative. What was the idea inside this? Was the sickness about radiation sickness, or am I drawing too many correlations?
I remember my bass player that it did all the concept behind and all the lyrics. I remember he was always talking about the sickness of the world, like the world is, it's especially now, it's really, it's like everybody, all the world is sick, it's like the war and the pandemic and the industrial. I mean, I'm not a political guy,
sure.
But I think that the theme was really that. I mean, like the world going to end sooner than it was planned to do, Yeah. So it's like, it's a mixture of things. Like I remember in the cover, we really wanted this dry feeling, like the desert and all the industrial things in the background, and so to give this sensation of dryness that the world was going towards. So I think that was the theme, like this angry feeling.
Well, it does that, and the woman's got this like horrified surprise or something on her expression, where her mouth's kind of open in a scream. There is, though, this, if you look, there's a cool little thing that in the bottom part of that figure, it becomes roots, which are also sort of desiccated and dry, but there's one green leaf.
Yeah, exactly. The hope for the future.
Yeah,
exactly.
Man. So very cool. So very cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this before I say this next part. Are you a Seven Dust fan at all? Have you heard Seven Dust?
Honestly, I think I never heard a song from them. Never.
Well, then there's something in the universe, because there, in this record, The Glorious Sickness, I heard some echoes of Seven Dust. For me, that's a compliment, because I'm a huge Seven Dust fan, and some of your guitar work, I was really digging it. It's distinctively your own, but when you hear these echoes of, maybe it's because as a listener, you have artists you like, but there were a few places where it's like, oh man, that's getting a cool Seven Dust feel, but always a little bit more technical.
Okay, yeah,
Anyway, that's a compliment. And if you haven't checked out Seven Dust, check them out. You might
I will.
you might dig them. Really good band. Animosity is probably my favorite record by them. If you know, not
Okay,
that you'll
I'll
remember,
check
I'll
it.
send you a note.
Yeah.
But on the Glorious Sickness, so the you say that this is where your career began. The Eva Rose, which is one of the tracks, when I listened to that, I felt like I could hear the future of DGM. I began to feel like I could hear some DGM that was going to be in the like. I get I have the perspective because I'm sitting in the future and I get to listen to it all.
Exactly.
But I think this is your songwriting beginning to mature, like already in 2008. I think, is that when this record was?
Yeah, absolutely. Because back then I was really torn between like Nevermore. Nevermore was the thing for me back then. You know, Nevermore is Strapping Young Lad and Devin Townsend, all his work.
Oh yeah.
So pretty much all the Devin Townsend in the heavy side, you know, more like in the strapping. But at the same time, I was still a major fan of Symphony X and Kansas, all the melodic prog, you know. Yeah. So I was torn. You know, if I listen now to that record, I'm hearing some super heavy riffs, but all the how do you say in English, like the soaring choruses, you know, like the epic. No, it's not epic, but it's like super melodic.
Yeah.
Modulations, and that I still do now every time with DGM, trying to improve every time, of course. But I think that album started, my thinking in a certain way when composing. So usually it's like searching for the heaviest riff in the world, but then not going into the but going into a melodic thing and exploring into the super melodic and catchy chorus. That is my go-to formula if it's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing, because I noticed that in the empYrios work where you do have some of the, you know, the growl vocals, you always resolved in the choruses into something melodic. And a good example of what you were just describing, I think, is Destination Null, which is a track from the record. It's got a great groove, but it's got this kind of epic feel in the chorus. It's just one example, but it's a good example if folks want to hear what Simone is describing. But this record also has some really great other tones and textures. The Time Lapse is a tune that's got, again, a soft piano thing that's a really nice counterpoint to some of the really heavy stuff that's on the record. And then you guys was A New Dawn the first like official video you guys did?
Yeah, I think we did. The first one was Eva Rose.
Okay.
But right after that, we did because with that record we started to play live, you know, for real. Like we did tons of show everywhere, from little bars, clubs, or supporting bigger acts, and here and there in Italy especially, and a few festivals outside. And I remember after the first shows, we filmed all the live shows to do the New Dawn song. Yeah. That's one of my favorite songs from that album. It's not the most technical because it's really slow.
Yeah.
But I remember the heaviness and a feeling like, oh, I wrote the right chorus on this one. And this super simple riff, it was like, you know, like Devin kind of thing. And I was super proud of that one.
Yeah. It's a great track. And you know, this I think in the track order it's last, but it shows my notes, like what I wrote as I was listening to it, is that this showed a maturity of the songwriting. It's really melodic. It's got great sections that really have you know, one of the other things I noted about your work is your rhythm work. So you have the flash, you can do the speed stuff, and there are videos that, you know, folks can watch and that I watched that show you working on the fretboard, you know, tapping and doing all the things that they're delightful and they're musical, but you're equally as good, I think, with the rhythm work when you write a riff that is going to be the foundation for a chorus or a verse, and that's not always sort of another skill that a guitarist has. You know, to do both.
I mean, I totally agree, because that's what I tell to every band that I record. I always tell them, because I see all this. I mean, I like, especially in the past, I like to be, the fastest guy in Italy to play guitar. I really don't care now. Like, really nothing. I really care about good music. And of course, I learned to play guitar in that way. So from time to time, I put all this tapping thing, but all these flash licks or whatever. But I tell to these guitar players, because they come into the studio knowing all this, like Kiko Loriero, 8 fingers tapping, but then it's time to do the basic rhythm, and they suck, most of them.
Yeah.
And I really cannot, and I always tell them, okay, an album is like 60 minutes. You have 60 minutes of rhythm guitars and probably 2 minutes of solos. So which is the most important, like the rhythm guitar? And that's the lesson that I learned early on when I was recording myself, because I was spending 1 week crafting a solo and then 10 minutes playing rhythm guitar, and all my guitar teacher was saying, hey, this is sloppy. So I really learned the craft of, and also not playing basic stuff when you have, most of the metal guys, I don't want to say that I am, believe me, I don't want to say that I'm the best or better. I just care about that aspect.
Yeah.
Most of the metal guys, they just go with power chords and that's it, double bass. To me, it's really boring. I like to, every time I write a song, even if I have like 3 simple chords, I spend like days thinking, oh, how should I play those chords? Maybe I can put like a triplets here, or this lick here. Something that makes it unique and makes it especially more fun for me to play. I don't want to be on stage playing like waiting for the solo. I want to have fun for all the song. So and sometimes, and when I listen back to the empYrios records, I think I was too much in that sense, too much searching for the technical little lick in the rhythm. Nowadays I'm more like, I want to find the right vocal line for the chorus, because that's the most important thing. But maybe because I'm 20 years older or 15 years old. But yeah, I'm glad that you underlined the rhythm aspect, because really all people always tells me, oh, show us some videos for the solos. Yeah, okay. I know that people enjoy that stuff, but most of the time, I mean, when I record records, for me, it's like 2 weeks of rhythm guitars and 2 days of solo. Really, it's like
I did notice as I was listening to the songs, I found that I wanted to pay attention to the guitar work, not just when you were going to be carrying the melody in the solo. And it's everything from, unique chord changes to how you play inside a chord. To you got one of the meanest sort of wahs that I remember the first time I noticed that as a cool thing in rock. It was Zakk Wylde. He was playing on an Aussie record.
Yeah, it's the Zakk.
And you do that like nobody's business. You're so good at it. So yeah, so I appreciate the fact that you're kind of a well-rounded guitarist. It's not just how many notes can I play in 30 seconds.
I really don't care. I never cared, probably. I mean, a little bit back then, because it was, I think every guitar player that likes to be not the fastest, but the most technical thing. And then you turn around and you see a 12 years old kid that plays every Steve Vai song better than Steve Vai. So it's like, it's really, I mean, there's no point in challenge with speed and stuff like that.
It's that's a race you can't win. Because
exactly.
But the thing of it, and this is, if I've matured at all in music, it's what you just said. It's not how fast. Like that is I call it a tool in your tool belt. When you need to express something for which speed is a thing and will help to communicate what you want musically, then of course it's great if you have the ability to do so. But that's a musical approach. It's a musical extension of that skill. It's not the skill for its own sake. And so I think guitarists, and this goes for everybody, but it's, learning your craft so that you can express. Like I talked to Jordan Rudess one time, and his comment was, I've kind of gotten to the point where I can make my hands do what I think. I have that synergy. Then the challenge really becomes, how do you make a great song? Because that's way more important. So, but I will tell you, despite all of this conversation, these are great songs, man. This, I'm hoping, I know that this is in your past, and we're going to get to your more current stuff here in a second, but this music deserves to be heard. So folks who maybe, are newer to the genre, or just somehow missed empYrios, it's cool stuff. It's worth going back and folks checking out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay, let's talk about DGM. So you joined DGM, which has already been going, but you joined in 2005, 2006?
Yeah, around that period. Yeah, 2000. I don't remember the exact year, but it was 2005, 6.
Were they? Forgive me, this probably was available somewhere, but did the former guitarist just need to leave? Or
he basically is one of my best friends now. I think he's one of the best guitar players in Italy and in the world. It's really Yngwie-ish kind of style, but more modern, in a way. He was really tired of the they were doing really good back then, like selling a lot in Japan before me, I guess. I think they were selling a lot in Japan. They played a few of the biggest shows in Italy. It's called Gods of Metal, like with Whitesnake, like big shows. But he was tired of doing record after record, and he actually is tired of the music business, like in general. He's now playing for his, without contracts, without labels. He's just playing music, still now. And I kind of understand him now, but and he was tired, and he was simply left the band, and the band didn't know what to do because he was the main composer and the main guitar player.
Yeah.
So they just did some. It's a funny story that you mentioned Jordan Rudess, or I don't know.
Rudess, I think. But yeah,
Rudess.
Go ahead.
Because in Italy, I am in the hometown of the Dream Theater Italian fan club.
Okay.
I'm in the same hometown, and I know the guys. I knew the guys back then. I don't know if it's still up. And they did this 10th anniversary show with Jordan Rudess as a guest, and we played as empYrios. We opened the show, and the guys asked us, "Oh, can you play some Dream Theater songs?" No. We play our music, And it was Jordan seeing us, and at the show, the main band was this official cover band of Dream Theater, Italian official cover band, and the singer was the DGM singer, and the keyboard player was the DGM keyboard player. So we knew each other back then, and that started everything from that night, because we kept in contact. And when the former guitar player left, they just called me. "Oh, would you like to do I do say sorry for my bad English, but would you like to do a test, with us?" And I was like, okay. But I suddenly told them, "Hey, I cannot play with him like him. I have a totally different style." "Oh, we don't care. Just come down," because they're from Rome. So I went down in Rome. I remember it was Easter Day. And we played 3 songs that I learned. And I was really methodical. I learned everything except for the solo. For me, it was impossible because it's a totally different style. And the guys asked me, "Oh, do you write songs?" And I was like, "Of course I did." I had all my empYrios albums, and I started to throw riffs at them, "Oh, listen to this. And then the day after, we started working on the first album. So
wow.
That's the story, how it went.
Yeah. Well, it's there is I can hear the stylistic difference, but they were fortunate, in my view, to find you because they replaced not just a guitar player but a composer. For the band.
I think without taking, I mean, without disrespect with the previous lineups, I think after I joined, that was the first time that after the first album that was like a setup, different shape. After that album, we really established first of all, it was the first time that the same lineup last for forever. Like we are the same guys as 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And we really started to take things seriously, like touring and doing festivals all over the world, and trying to push trying to search a better label. Because before that, it was basically as we were with empYrios. They were all friends, like from school. So it was the same setup. But then things changed because I was really really convinced that I really wanted to spread my music all over the world. So
yeah.
And I saw the opportunity with DGM because they were already kind of known in the world, so it was easier for me to bring my music to the people.
Well, and when you guys in the years following that, you played the Prague Power USA in 2011 and 2014, the Prague Power Europe in 2008 and 2011. You guys were Gods of Metal in second time in 2007, and there you were with Heaven and Hell, Dream Theater, Symphony X, Dark Tranquillity. Like you were right in the thick of it with progressive metal in those first handful of years after you came into the band. And I think some of that, I mean, I don't know, but like when I listened to Different Shapes, which you just mentioned, which is the first record that you wrote, and Frame.
Yeah.
You know what I wrote? I wrote "Holy shit" when I listened to Frame.
Frame is probably everybody that I meet now at DGM gigs, they always see Frame as their favorite.
It's a great album, man. They're all good. They're all good. And I'm coming at this from, I was familiar with your music, but I spent a lot of like dedicated, thoughtful time listening to your music over the past week or whatever. And that album just every next track I was like, whoa, man. It just, there was you guys, I don't know if there was just a chemistry that had developed or what, but there's something that sort of seemed to really gel with that particular record.
Yeah, I mean, with the first one, Different Shapes, we had a different singer back then with that album. But I really didn't know I didn't know the guys first, because I joined the band and we started writing, but I didn't know the taste of the guys. So I just started writing songs. Some of them were like leftovers from empYrios albums. They were too melodic for empYrios. And so I really didn't know what to expect. And we managed to put up that album. But I really think with Frame, we really toured a lot before that. So we, you know how it is. You spend hours in the car or in the tour bus together, and you start to listen to the same music, and we should do a song like that. We should do a song like this. And we basically knew each other better. And I think the chemistry, I still remember the chemistry in that period was really magic. Like every time we sat down, okay, this is a riff. This is a vocal line. Done. Finished. Like in half an hour, we wrote a song, and it was boom, one after the other. And it was really, really nice memories from the period. Really, really good.
And you remind me, as you were talking there was a vocal change, and they're both good singers, but the prior guy, Titani, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
His voice is more sort of classic hard rock. It's got a kind of a Robin McCauley sound to it from Michael Schenker Group, which is good, but it's another situation for me where it was really good, but the vocal replacement, I think, was a little bit better suited to the music. That's an opinion. And so all the DGM fans don't like crash my email with hate, because they're both amazing records. And in fact, Different Shapes, there's some sounds. Peace of Mind's got places that's got some really cool thrash. Signs of Time, such a great progressive song. I could even hear little bits of Dragon Force and Fates. Like there is so much flavor in that record. A Man I'll Never Be, absolutely for me was there. I heard echoes of Dream Theater. None of this is, by the way, imitation. It's just, because you guys are in this sonic sphere, it invokes these kinds of illusions for me. But they're good illusions. It's you guys are working inside a genre and doing it really at a really high level. But when Frame came about, I felt like because of the vocal change, there were more. It afforded you more opportunities with the music, and we'll talk about some of the subsequent records. But I think, is it Mark Basile? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, perfect.
His voice has actually gotten stronger with each successive record. I feel like as I was listening, he's matured. It's gotten a little bit rounder. He's got for me a real Michael Sweet sound in a lot of his work, particularly early. It kind of has, as he's matured as a human, his physiology I think has rounded that tone. But anyway, so we've talked about different shapes. Let's talk a little bit more about Frame. This is definitely like not the place to start. I always recommend people start at the beginning of a band's history, but like if you just want to see what DGM's about and you haven't heard them before, this would be a good one, just because there's so much, I think, new ground that the band breaks with this particular record. There's a track called Not in Need, and you have this early riff in that at about the noted at the 15-second mark. It's almost got this, like, I don't know if it's a funk. Like you do this something. It's a really, really fresh riff, man.
You know what I'm talking about? It's I remember, because that riff, it's basically a sort of Extreme ripoff.
Yeah.
You remember Extreme?
I do,
like Porno Graffiti, and they had this funk vibe, mixed with this heavy rock guitars.
Yeah. And
I still remember when I wrote that riff, because I've never been a major fan of Extreme, but Nuno Bettencourt is probably one of the best guitarists in the world. So from time to time, I was trying to learn some of his riffs, and that led basically to that thing.
That's I was going to say that, like, the Extreme is one of the few bands in rock/metal that have incorporated funk, I think, successfully. Yeah. And I heard an echo there. You did a great job with that track. There's a track on Frame called Trapped, where I don't know if it's bongos, it's this really cool percussive stuff, choirs, chanting, horns. Like, it's a really different, the orchestration's really very different, and I loved it because it lent some diversity to this really great progressive metal record.
Yeah, it was my time back then. It was my orchestral period where I was really falling in love with all the. Basically, I think it was because of the Odyssey from Symphony X, with all this big orchestration, and I started to buy all these libraries, and I really wanted to become the next Hans Zimmer or something. So I really tried to incorporate those orchestral elements. But you really need a lot of time and a lot of study to put in that kind of thing, and I really stopped doing that after a few years. I mean, I really like now to listen to it, but I don't have the patience to sit down and spend like 1 month to write 30 seconds of orchestra. So I usually, when I need some orchestral stuff, I just call all my great friends that are doing great work. But back then I was really, because it was the beginning of all these libraries with computers, like the beginning of so every new day I had a friend, I have this new bongo library that is really great. So I have to write something with that, and it was really creative, actually.
Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear shades of that in this record. There's the track Away's got a little bit of an Egyptian thing.
Exactly.
Which is really cool. There's the track Heartache. I don't know if this is intentional, but the beginning almost sounds like a heartbeat.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a great And this was actually the track where, or the album where Rose in the Wind, it locked in my head how much energy you spend in the rhythm sections of the guitars, like making those distinctive. So those are some of the tracks. Like, anybody open up any of those, and I think you're going to find so much that you'll enjoy if you've not heard that record. Let's talk about Momentum. This is the one we talked about earlier that has the domino cover. You guys really locked in a sound at this point. We talked about the chemistry on Frame. So this record, you're already firing on all these pistons. But then here you brought in some guests. What was the thinking behind wanting to have some guests on the record?
I mean, basically, we never thought about guests before that. But that album, I remember enjoying creating that album because it was right after the tour with Symphony X, like right after we started writing. And we were all like, I mean, again, they still are one of my favorite band ever. So for me, like being on tour, being on the road with them for like almost 2 months, it was like a dream come true. So, you can imagine how happy I was. And that was really reflecting on my songwriting.
Yeah.
And basically the guests that I had in the record were the guys that we were on tour with, because Russell was of course singing with Symphony X, and Jorn Viggo from Pegasus Mind, one of my great friends nowadays. We're great friends and one of the best guitar players in the world, I think. They were opening with us. We were sharing the same bus, the same tour. So we were all you make friends on the bus, and then
Sure.
you ask them to play on the record. Because one thing that we never did, and I think we will never do, is to have people on the records, guests that we don't know personally. Because to me, I really don't care to have, like, I don't know, the biggest star in the world that sings my songs, because I know that he will sing my song for money. I'm sure that he will.
Sure.
And it's right. It's his job. But I don't care. I really want people that I know, and I know that they respect us as musicians. So they agree to do what they do, not for the money, but because they like us as persons first, and they like our music. That's why, we had Russell and Jorn, because we were friends, and we had fun, and hopefully they enjoyed our music when we were on tour. And the same happened for the album after that, when we had Romeo again, and Tom from Evergrey, another one of my best friends. So
yeah. Well, and just so people know what you're talking about, the track Reason on Momentum has Russell, and the track Chaos has Jorn. So those are, great ones to look at. You also had some additional orchestration. Marco Mantovani did some orchestration. Was that what was he doing, like strings and stuff, or what was he doing?
Yeah, I mean, is a friend of mine from my hometown. Is an arranger. He's not a metal guy. He's like, he arranges stuff for orchestras, and we're all in the same circle of friends. We're all musicians, and every time I find myself or my keyboard player, we struggle with sounds. We really would love to, because my keyboard player is really like a old prog style keyboard player. So he really likes to have his keyboards, not working with the computer with the samples. Yeah. So every time we really need something more realistic, like more real strings, or I asked to my friends, as I told before. Now I asked to Romeo, but always to Marco Mantovani, that guy, because he's the genius of all the. Oh, I have this library that was made in India that sounds like you need the sounds that you need. So he knows everything. Sometimes I called him and I am like, which instrument is the instrument that you can hear in that movie, like, and I mimic the sound. Oh, and he's like, oh, he's it's like a koto from Japan. I have a library of that. He has a
my
library
gosh.
of every instrument.
What a great friend to have, man.
Yeah.
Great resource.
It's the best.
So cool.
It's the best.
Well, couple of notes for folks. Like I was listening on this record. There's tracks Numb and Pages. One of the things I have this. I'm a vocalist myself, and one of my things I love to hear a vocalist do is turn a phrase where they resolve into a chordal change or a part change with a half step, because it creates this the tension and resolve I find to be powerful and beautiful. And I don't know if you wrote these or if it was in combination with your vocalist, but on those particular tracks, some of the vocal lines use this technique. And I just wanted to mention it to people so that if, because I think I've talked about this before on the show, these are good examples and they do it really well with the vocal lines in these two particular songs. The tune Overload, great prog tune. Void has I was telling you had that really mean wah. Yeah. That's a good example what you do when you do that. I know it's silly to talk about, but I have to nerd out a little bit on some of the cool metal stuff that you do. Let's talk quickly about the passage. So you mentioned before you also had guests here. You had Tom from Evergrey, who we've had on the show, and Michael, who we've also had on the show. And this was because, how did you become friends with Tom? Had you toured with Evergrey or just through other?
No, I mean, yeah, in a way. I mean, Romeo, of course, it was because of the tour that we did with Symphony X. And Tom, I don't remember the first time I met him. Actually, I remember the first time, and it's still a funny story because, I mean, that's not the time where we became friends, but this is worth to mention. I was at the Gods of Metal, this big festival in Italy, and I was in the crowd watching Yngwie. It was like 2004. And then I saw these big guys with blonde hair, like 2 meters tall. And I realized they were Evergrey. They were watching the Yngwie show. And I was a major fan back then. In Search of Truth is probably one of my favorite albums from Evergrey. And I asked them, hey guys, can we make a photo together? And they said no. And they turned. So I was so pissed that I really stopped listening to Evergrey. Oh, this fucking, assholes, rock stars. And then I found myself playing in this, I think it's called Episode, this kind of, like metal opera kind of thing with all guests from around the world.
Yeah.
And we actually did a show with this project. And I think that was the time when I met. It was back in 2000, I don't remember, like 8 or 9. I was in the rehearsal space with Tom, and the first thing and he was all super cool guy, like, oh, I heard your guitars on the record, they are amazing. I know DGM, I know the songs. And I was like, I was the guy that asked you about the photo, and you say no. And he was like, no, it's impossible. It's impossible. No, I tell you. And every time that we meet now, it's always that story that comes up. Oh, do you want to take a photo? No, together. So we really became friends. And then we met some other festivals. And basically we became really good friends when he joined Redemption, this US prog band, as a main singer. And I joined, I'm not joined, but I joined the band for the live shows and for lead guitars. And we spent quite a few weeks together rehearsing, sleeping in the same hotel. So,
yeah,
when you spend time with someone, hopefully you get along, and we became friends. So,
well, his appearance on Ghost of Insanity, which is on the Passage record, is really good. He's a great singer. I love. I've had him on the show because I love his music so much. The track Fallen's cool. There's an actual video for this. All you guys in the band you're in some cool white room playing, and your singer's off in a riverbed. He's in the river, standing in a river. It's it's epic. It's really cool. He does a great job. There's a track called Disguise. There's a nice change of voice. It's a piano and voice thing. Again, another flavor just to give some diversity to the record. I like that you guys do this. There's plenty of heavy music, but there's always some breath inside the track composition, which I think is really cool. Daydreamer is another track. There's a little bit of funk in that one too, Simone.
Yeah. I mean, you know what about the funk and bluesy thing? You know, I grew up listening to I told you, like Eric Clapton, all these blues players, and somehow I'm always scared of putting that thing in prog because it doesn't sound, like serious somehow, But from time to time, I'm like, whatever. Like I like that. So why not putting that influence in a song or two?
I 100% agree with that. I told Jordan this about from time to time in the Dream Theater stuff, he'll do a little ragtime, and some fans hate it. So it's not serious. It's not, it's not and I think, no, man, it like that diversity gives the song color, and it's a break from incessant, heaviness. Not that they're guilty of that, because Dream Theater is a favorite band of mine, and there's tons of change and dynamics in their work, but it's a different flavor. So I am agreeing with you. I think, introducing these other styles, I think keeps it fresh. And I liked hearing it in your work when I was listening to the DGM stuff. For folks that are sort of paying attention, Dogma is the track that Michael Romeo guests on that record. Let's go to Tragic Separation. This is the most recent, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that this year? No, it was 2 years ago.
It came out. No, it came out. Wow, 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. I remember because we actually finished. I finished the mix in March 2020, and it was the exact start of the. I remember because I couldn't go to the studio, so I managed to brought home because we were in lockdown. I managed to brought home all the speakers and computers, and I mixed the record in my bedroom. That's what I remember. And then the album was supposed to be out in the early summer, and we tried to wait. Oh, let's wait a few months. Maybe it will be finished so we can tour. Oh, maybe let's wait another month. But then, it was pointless for us to have this album ready. And so we put it out on October 2020. And I think it's one of of course, it's always the last album that you love the most, but it's actually true. I'm really proud of the album. And it didn't get the attention because we didn't play live, nothing. Like we did one show in support of that album. The only window were last summer when we were be able to go live and play. And I think, after I told you, for me, it's not like that I write a song and it's done. For me, it takes really months and months of overthinking on parts, and maybe I change something. So for me, an album is like a result of at least 2 years of work, and seeing that the album is going out and it's gone in 2 weeks, in 1 month, because people, they don't see us playing or whatever. It's really a pity, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is a shame, partly because there are tracks on this, particularly Surrender, which is one you did a video for, they bear the hallmarks of DGM, but they also have an accessibility that I think could have expanded the reach of the band and the music. And one of the unfortunate circumstances with a lot of labels, and I know this because at my time at Microsoft, we would ship games. I worked at Xbox. We'd ship games, and there was this sort of ship and forget, and it wasn't intentional or it wasn't bad blood or anything. It was just there was another thing to do, and so I think record labels are guilty of the same thing. They pile themselves up with releases, and so they get something out the door. And there was a time in the record industry where the record would go out and then the work began, because there was the cultivation of trying to bring people to it. in today's world, a lot of the record labels seem to rely upon the artist to bring the fans to the music. Like you have an install base already because you have fans or you have social media or whatever. And so there's not as much support for the record once it's out. And that's, I mean, I can't fix that. I don't know if it can be fixed, but it's precisely this scenario you found yourselves in with Tragic Separation, exacerbated by COVID. But that's a great record that I think kind of slipped under the radar with a lot of listeners.
Yeah, and I think what you said is perfect, because it pictures the state of the music business nowadays. I mean, I don't want to complain about. I mean, label, they really need to earn money, so they do their job the best they do. But for example, when you said in the beginning, oh, DGM are totally underrated, whatever, I totally get the point. But mainly, one of the reasons is, I mean, you can blame labels or promoters, whatever, but one of the main reasons is because we are, as a band, we are really not that much into the social self-promoting thing. You know, we found ourselves like not posting stuff for months, but mainly not because we're lazy, because, you know, I think musicians nowadays, they really need to invest their time and efforts in learning how to do that. You know,
Yeah.
You know, like I always find myself spending time in different things, like in finding new chords, whatever, or finding new producing techniques, or learning about new microphones, and those are the things that I have interest in. And I really don't see myself thinking, oh, it's Tuesday, I should post at 2:00 because that's the right time. Because that's the thing that most of the bands, I see bands in the studio recording, and they every day basically, and I see them. I don't want to drag like, I don't want to sound like the old guy. You know, they're all on the phone, but it's like, oh, let's film the setup of the amp so we can share it. Okay, yeah, but please first learn to play that riff properly, because that's what we're doing here. You're paying me, you know. And most of the time they spend, and I mean, I'm not complaining, because that's what they have to do nowadays to promote themselves. So maybe it's me that I'm wrong, you know, that I don't like spending time in those things.
It is a change in the era of social media, that there's an expectation from the consumer, whether it's someone listening to music or reading a book or watching a movie, that the artist, the creator, be accessible to them through, and largely it doesn't mean they're going to call them on the phone, but it means that like some of the, this does sound like a get off my lawn old man statement, but there used to be some mystique about, you didn't know everything about the artist. You didn't know what they had for dinner. You didn't know that they were on the booze cruise, or you didn't know, you know, this or that. And I don't know that would help artists or not. Although, let me give you one example with using Dream Theater, since we're both Dream Theater fans. John Mayong is kind of an enigma. It's not that he hasn't been on here and there with some interviews. And this is, you know, this may just be his personal proclivity, which is fine. But it also does create this sense of mystique about who he is, what he thinks, how he approaches the instrument. I lament that we don't have that. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't need to know everything about this guy or that girl and what they do as a performer, as a musician. I want to support them. I want to go to the show. I want to buy their record. I want to watch their videos, and I would even follow their Instagram. But there's sometimes they become so accessible that I think it removes some of the, not just mystique, but some of the,
you lose the magic. You lose the magic.
Magic, yeah.
Like, yeah, that, I mean, I don't know if you say that in US, but here in Italy, everybody always says, try not to meet your heroes, because, you know, because not all the time, but most of the time you lose the, you know, the imaginary that you know, the imagination that you had created in your head about them. And it's exactly what you said. I mean, you talk about John Mayang, but for me it was a lot of artists that in my head they were this creature, magical creature, and then you meet them, and then you spend the days with them on the bus, and oh, that guy stinks. I don't know. I'm just
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, it could
that guy is super boring. I don't want to be with him like for more than 2 minutes because he always talk about whatever. But before, I was holding the record and I was looking at the picture and I was wondering, oh, is one of my heroes. It must be like a phenomenal creature of the past.
Well,
you lose the magic.
I think that's right. I know that I'm. This is an opinion everybody shares, but one of the things I hate is when artists of any genre get they go to these award ceremonies, whether it's the Grammys or the Country Music Awards or whatever it is, and they win and they go up and they use their time not to thank everybody who helped them, but it's sort of a political pulpit. Like, here's my cause, here's what I think about this politician or whatever. And part of me like laments that artists do this so much because one, I think it's a little bit naive because most of the world's pretty divided, and so you run the risk of alienating some people for whom ideological divides influence their purchase behavior. So, like as a business person, that's Absolutely. A bad choice. But then there's also exactly what you're talking about. This you meet somebody. It's happened to me, a vocalist that I adore. Met him in person, and it was so acerbic, everything he said, that it really put me off. And so now when I listened to him sing, I don't hear just the beauty of what he's doing. I see this kind of jerk guy, and so I think it's something that artists need to think about. If you are all about your ideology or you're all about one thing or another, whether it's politics or religion or the lack of those things, whatever, stating that for the world, if that's what you're about, that's fine. But in some ways that puts something between them and the music. And it seems to me artists should be super concerned about how people feel about the music first.
Absolutely. I mean, I was thinking now while you were talking that in, I don't know how many years Facebook is up. I don't know, like 10, 15. I was thinking I never wrote anything about my ideas on everything. Like, yeah, of course I post all the time. I did this interview. I will do the show. This is my new album and all this like great promotion tools, that I should use more. But yeah, I use from time to time. But I really don't get the point when artists like they put themselves on a level where they feel they are the right person to teach you what are the good things or bad things to do. I mean, everybody should think with their own head. That's basically how the world should be, right? Like, and as you said, sometimes you lose the magic, not only by meeting your heroes, but also if they have a totally different vision than yours. I don't know, in politics or, and then you don't listen to the music in the same way as before because, that guy is Democratic, that guy is Republican, I don't know, whatever, And to me, it's not music. To me, it's not music. Music, it's just the beauty of sitting down, putting your headphones, and be transported by the notes. That's what it is for me.
I agree with you, and I think at the risk of sounding maudlin, one of the great values and virtues of music is that it's a thing that people can agree on. It's a language unto itself that people can experience and love together and put aside all kinds of differences. Unless the music has a bunch of lyrics that are particularly screaming one particular idea that you hate, but largely that's not the case. So when artists choose to use their popularity or their platform to begin spreading ideology, it just seems to me that they're creating an association that is maybe not the one that they want, because it's difficult to separate those things. And now in the world, there's also now this whole thing with cancel culture. Someone will, oh well, Simone, he doesn't like the color green. I'm never buying his records anymore because I love green. I'm being facetious, but okay. So we've done our bully pulpit there for a minute. Let's go back let's go back to your music here. So this last DGM record, which came out in 2020, such a good record for folks who maybe missed it because they were in lockdown. I mean, when you guys get back, will you guys go back out on the road to support this at some point, or will you just wait now and do a tour when you have a
No,
new record?
we thought about that, but since we already pretty much wrote most of the next record, or two records actually, and we think that it's time. I mean, I hate to have songs ready to be recorded and not be able to do, because to me the songs are getting older day by day, so and sometimes I have songs that I wrote like 3 years before the release of the album, because you have all the recordings, all the writing with the guys, all the promotion period, some months away from the delivery of the master. So we just thought, since in Italy, I mean, I see a lot of bands are going back on tour, but it's still, I see also a lot of bands that are canceling last minute, or maybe canceling, a few shows. Since we're not a big band, we cannot afford to risk to be canceled last minute. So we just thought, hey, we have all these bunch of songs that we like. Let's work on the songs, and let's release the next record, and maybe, hopefully, we can do a tour to support both of the records. We can just play songs from Tragic and from the new one.
Yeah. Well, in the United States, touring feels like it's back up and running. A lot of bands doing tours. States are pretty much all open, so that's good. But one of the other complications for Europe, of course, is there's the war. And so even outside Ukraine, you've got border states and you don't know what's going to happen. So there's some added risk there. Do you have any timeline on when the next record might be available? Is it going to be this year, next year?
No, I mean, I think we're going to finish recordings and writing, because writing with us, if it's only the music, it's only me, and it's fast. I mean, not fast, but it's going really fast. But then we have to meet together to do all the vocal lines. And my singer lives like 8 hours from here. So it's basically another state. He lives deep in the south of Italy. And so, it's always tricky to meet. It's not like in 3 weeks we've done. Usually it takes a few months. So I think we're going to finish the recordings this year, and it will be probably out early next year, or somewhere early next year.
Okay, cool. We'll watch for that. Let's transition now and talk about a few of your other musical endeavors, and there's a lot of them. So Redemption, you mentioned this earlier. You are the in this lineup. Would it be accurate to say you're a touring member?
Yeah, even if we basically did two shows, and I'm more of like a session guitarist because I played on 3 records.
Okay.
And I played all the solos and sharing the guitar leads with Nick, with the leader of the band. And yeah, we did Redemption is not a live band, basically. We did the Prog Power headlining in 2018. And it was a great experience, with also Ray joining for one song.
Yeah.
And with Chris Poland, I shared the stage with Chris Poland from Megadeth, and it was awesome because he's crazy. And but yeah, the band is mostly a studio band, and yeah, I mean, we never talk about joining the band fully. Also, mainly because they're all in America, except Tom now. He lives in Sweden, of course. But so we just every album that they're making, we talk to each other, and we see. And Nick asked me to play solos, and I'm more than happy, because I love to play guitar, and I like the guys. And after that experience with the Prog Power, when we shooted also the Blu-ray, Alive in Color, I think it's called. And
yeah, that's right.
it was, again, when you meet the guys, it's not that just doing session guitars for money. I met the guys for real, and we became friends. We spent sometimes together, good times together. So they're really good guys, and but it's not. I don't feel like joining a band where I'm not the main composer. I don't see the point of me joining a band and only playing stuff that I didn't wrote, because it's like you said before, it's like the singer that has to sing songs that he didn't wrote. I don't feel it like,
yeah,
I will criticize everything. Oh no, that riff should be that way. Oh, you shouldn't do that all time there. It's better like this.
So when you do solos for Redemption, you get to write the solo.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Yeah, Nick just tells me, okay, we have a solo from minute 1.2 to usually it's like 4 minutes solos. Like while in my songs it's always short, so I can put all my chops in 30 seconds. While in Redemption, I really need to work my ass. I remember the last time that it was the toughest one, because the songs were really long and were super tricky, like super. Everybody called DGM progressive, and it's fine, but we're not super, like odd meters. We're pretty much a straightforward, heavy metal band with some progressive touches.
Yeah.
While Redemption is way more progressive. Like you have super intricate. I remember when we played live, I really had to study, I think, for an entire summer. Because to memorize all these changes, it's easy in the studio, you go piece by piece, but when you have to go live and play 2-hour show, plus the pressure on the DVD filming, and that's why I really have fun in the studio recording the solos, because it's a challenge, and it's really different from what I usually do, so it makes you find new perspective on playing different stuff. It's really, I really enjoyed it.
Your work on it's really great, and I love the callback to DGM, because I actually had that thought. Is there's definitely progressive elements, but there's also places that are more traditionally metal, and places that feel very power metal-y, with a lot of double bass and a lot of sort of vocal lines that have a center of hope and brightness, because they resolve into major chords and not minor.
Major, yeah. It's actually you're actually right on point, because I love all those Lydian, I don't know how much technical, like the major atmospheres that usually are not. If you play heavy metal, you have to be sad or whatever, and I really like to play that style of chords, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I think as the more I've been a fan of the genre, the more I've appreciated bands that deliberately write songs that use modes and chordal changes that can kind of take the music into a more hopeful place. Maybe that's just a function of age. Maybe when you're younger, you're more nihilistic, I don't know, or more depressed. Okay, so that's and then I see a TBA on Redemption for 2022. Is there a record coming out this year?
I think they had the same, because the record I recorded the solos in last summer. So I'm sure it's been mixed during this winter. So I don't know if they're waiting for the pandemic again with the label, because they changed the label. Now they were on Metal Blade, now they're on AFM. So I think it should be soon, like in a few months.
Okay, we'll watch for that one. I know a friend of mine is playing bass for Ray Alder, who's doing an appearance at Power Prog USA.
Oh, okay, great.
And Ray's going to do some Redemption. I think he's in his set. His stuff will probably be Fates and solo and what else. But I know that it's the good fortune of Redemption is, in addition to all of the other musicians, it's been fronted by really good vocalists, Ray and now Tom. Okay, let's go forward to Sunstorm. Lelu. Am I saying that right? Lelu?
Yeah. It's French, so I don't even know.
Yeah.
Lalu. I don't know if I don't know which is the rest. The right way.
Again, some great musicians, guys like Virgil Donati. This stuff was to me much more fundamentally progressive. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. Again, with this project, I wasn't involved in the writing, so it's really like Vivian's world. Okay. He's really much into the 70s prog, like
Yes.
Yes.
Has that. Yes,
yeah.
I haven't wrote that down. Yeah, has a Yes.
And Yes, and having Virgil playing drums, of course. And again, this goes way back when we were friends with Vivian. He was searching for a guitar, and he fell in love with empYrios, and he loved the heavy aspect and the rhythm thing. And we became friends, and I recorded an album, and the latest one I played some solos, and we did a tour a few years ago. And to me, it's all great to be, back when I started, I never thought that I was the one that was called together with Virgil Donati. To me, they're all monsters, they are incredible musicians. They really dedicate their life about music and studying music. And I still see myself that I'm not worthy. I am like, why did you call me? I'm like, I'm not as good as all the other players, but hopefully they see something. Maybe I'm not the most technical guitar player in the world, but maybe, that's what I hope. Every time I record, especially for other people. Maybe they're searching something that I have that I don't know what it is, because I just play whatever it comes out from my hands and my head.
Well,
when you said, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
When you said before, I hear your touch somehow. And to me, it's not, I know that my ears always bring me to a certain way of hearing music. So, I just hope that I just hope to leave my mark in this music, even if I will not sell like millions of records.
Well, never say never. Never say never.
Hopefully, but no one in the progressive scene has done that so far. But
yeah, fair enough. But I think just drafting off what you said, there's there's no lack of chops in your playing, in terms of technical facility. Yes, there's always guys who can do more, whatever. I think the reason you get these calls is because when you write, it's not only about that, and there's a musicality in it, and I think that's why you get these calls. And there's a few more I want to talk about, but Lelu's one of them, because it is got a 70s sort of progressive rock thing. They drafted Jordan to play on a track called Slaughtered, and Jordan loves that stuff. Emerson, Lake and Palmer and a lot of those groups are what basically helped him decide not to finish work at Juilliard, and to, because he wanted to make this music so badly. And this record has dreamy stuff. Mirror Prison is a tune. There's a song called Tatanka, which I think is a Native American term for buffalo.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I remember that from Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it's interesting because the vocalist here, it's got some really low vocals deep in a register and some whispers. So that it's like really the vocals are used kind of in some ways as an instrument in places. Not that it always isn't an instrument, but as an instrument as much as it is like I'm the singer, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah. So he did a good job with these records, and I think and the most recent one, Paint the Sky, which just came out and is getting some really good reviews. John Anderson, Damian Wilson has for me a very John Anderson sound. Like he got that very pure high thing that he can do. But they've got some other guys on here. Paint the Sky, the actual title track's got Steve Walsh and Tony Franklin and Jens Johansson. It's just, you know, and Rudess plays on this. The Chosen Ones, I mean, you're listed there as a feature. So I commend people to this, particularly if you like that sort of more traditional. I don't want to say traditional like it's old and not relevant, because it's got really its own, you know, thing, but it harkens that. If like it stands on those shoulders, you know, of giants. This music, it's really good. Talk briefly about Sunstorm. What is kind of your place here? Is it the same kind of thing where you're doing guest, or are you doing some composition?
Yeah, I did in that project. I think I did 3 records with them, and I actually did a few of the writing, not the vocal lines or lyrics. I was just writing music because, you know, when they called me, it was I accepted because basically it was not a big chunk of time, because they were in a live band. It was like studio project. So, you know, and basically because of Jolie Turner, it was one of my favorite albums ever is Odyssey from Yngwie, and with Jolie Turner singing. But he sang in a lot of records like Rainbow Records. Difficult to Cure is one of my favorites. So when they asked me, oh, would you like to join the band? I was like, come on, it's Jolie Turner. I will play bass or ocarina or oboe, whatever, with Jolie Turner. So, and then I had the chance of writing a few songs, and that I really liked that, because it gave me again the opportunity of writing more in the bluesy hard rock style that I wasn't experimenting with DGM. While nowadays I will love to make a mixture of everything, you know, not caring, as we said before, not caring about the genre. You know, the progressive stuff has to be like that. I mean, so for the Sunstorm stuff, I really enjoyed especially the first record, and because it really gave me the opportunity of exploring this music style that I always loved, but I never played actually. Yeah. So
it definitely has that feel. I listened to a bunch of that music on that Edge of Tomorrow release, and you know, Turner singing really well there, and it has that more classic rock, you know, blues based thing. The next record, the Afterlife record, for me was a little bit more assertive than the previous one, but still had that, and there was a, you know, a little bit different sound because Ronnie Romero's fronting the band at this point. I don't know why Jolin Turner, maybe he couldn't do it. I don't know, but these records, they're like they have that feeling. A lot of us that started out, when we started out listening to music, a lot of this music, rock and metal, this was the sound. This was a big part of that sound.
Yeah.
So I can see how it would be a cool thing for you to get to participate in and do a different flavor. Just a couple more before I let you go. So I know that you did the first Sweet Oblivion record, which was you wrote and produced the whole record, and then of course Geoff Tate was the vocalist. Yeah.
Yep.
What was the process like with that? Did you write because you guys, I'm assuming you did this from different countries. Did you write like vocal lines and send them to him, or did you send him like basically minus tracks and he wrote to those?
No. In that case, it was one of the probably the only case in my life where I actually didn't write everything by myself, because I asked help from a few friends for the lyrics, because again, I'm not able to write good lyrics. And actually I had a few friends helping me with the music too, because, you know, I'm a super Queen Strikes fan, but only for Operation Mindcrime and Empire. I mean, it's not that I don't like the rest, but I never spend the time to analyze all the discography. So I didn't want to find myself to write Operation Mindcrime clones, you know. So I asked to a few friends. Oh, I like Rage of Order. I like that thing. So we mixed a bunch of songs together, and of course I did all the arrangements and but basically, yeah, I sent everything to Geoff Tate, and lyrics and melodies, and he basically sang what I wrote, except for a few songs where he changed some parts, and we had some discussion about, oh, I want the chorus to be like this, I want to be like that. But again, it's a strange, that's why I stopped probably making, among the other things, making those kind of records, because it's really tough for me to do records without being in the same room with the singer, like, oh, try that, because every time you want to change something, it's like you have to send an email at the minute 1.728. That word should be maybe in that. I mean, it's a nightmare for me, at least.
Yeah.
Especially with someone that I really never met, and so it's been. I think it's a good record, but I don't like making those kind of records now, because I really prefer. Nowadays, I will take a plane and I will fly to wherever he lives to maybe spend 2-3 weeks together crafting the songs. And I think the result will be different, more cohesive. I'm not saying that I don't like their album, because it came out, I mean, I did everything, so it came out like I wanted. But it's always that feeling that, oh, I could have done something different there, and maybe the vocals should have been different there. You always have all these regrets about little parts here and there.
Well, I listened to the record, and you and those who had a hand in helping you did a good job of having musical elements that echoed some of Geoff's past music, which I think a lot of his fans, whether they can express it or identify it, I think they enjoy it. I think they feel it. So I think you're successful there. I know exactly what you mean. I wrote a sort of holiday rock opera of sorts with my group Symphony North, and I had almost all session singers, and this thing where they were in another state recording, and I would have to listen to what they send me and then sort of pick it apart and send long detailed notes with time markers. Takes so much time, where the immediacy of being in the room and communicating with the musician, I don't think you can beat that. Like if you can do it. Obviously he actually lives here in Washington State. I'm in Seattle and you're in Italy, so I guess you can fly, but sometimes maybe, especially during COVID, I think a lot of records had to get made this way. So
I mean, you can make a record like that if you know. I mean, I never did a DGM record, for example, and we always been in the same room. But now we're working on songs, and it's easier because we know each other since forever.
Yeah.
And my singer knows what I want, so it's like I can call him. Hey, that line is like, oh, I know what you mean. Okay, no problem. And it's done in 2 seconds. Yeah, of course, and it's different.
Yeah, and you don't. You get to work with a lot of different great musicians, but you don't have the history. There's this like shorthand there's a shorthand that gets created between you and others, that makes the process easier because of the communication. So I hope I pronounced this right, but you've worked on the Leone Conti.
Leone Conti.
2 great singers on these records. Were you doing it's kind of like the Sweet Oblivion, same type of deal?
Exactly the same. The same. It's a method of work that the label at the time, Frontiers, they have with all their projects. They usually ask some producers and writers to write a record with a specific artist, and that was my first attempt, and that was super fun because they are both my friends. They always come to my studio to record their records. And
nice.
So it was really easy. It was like spending a weekend with the friends, and okay, let's sing the song. Cool. I remember Fabio Leone from Rhapsody. It took probably 2 afternoons to sing the whole album. It was really that easy and fast and
Yeah.
and really cool working on that album. I remember.
He's with Angra now, yeah. I saw him
Yeah,
with
also
Angra.
with Angra. Yeah.
I got the good fortune to open for Angra. I sang. There was a local Dream Theater cover band opening for Angra, and I got to go up and sing Under a Glass Moon. So
Great!
I got to be there in the room, and then I stayed, of course, and listened to Fabio sing. It was a great show. He's a great singer. So I wanted to mention that one. You mentioned earlier this metal opera episode, this Phantasmagoria. Just because I don't want to keep you up all night, I will just say about this that it received some great bon mots, as we say. The Encyclopedia Metallum, I think I'm saying that right, but it's a pretty good source if you're a metal or rock fan for information. Some of the folks who do reviews there had this album up for album of the year it came out, and it's got a long list of very accomplished musicians that they pulled together for this sort of rock opera. And Simone was a part of that. The last thing I want to really ask you about is The War of the Worlds Part 2 from Michael Romeo. Comes out, I think, in 2 days, so it's really timely that we're talking right now. You did this record. You were obviously Michael wrote the record, but you engineered the record, yeah? Well, in your studio.
Yeah, most of it. Yeah. I mean, not everything. Like the first one, because I also did the first one. It all came together because of John, the drummer, because John now lives in Italy.
Okay.
John Macaluso. And I know him since forever, and he lives near Rome. And he comes to my place to record drums all the time. You know, when he needs a studio with one of his projects, he's doing session work for hundreds of bands, and he recorded at my place. And when Romeo called him to record these two albums, he told Romeo, yes, I'll do it, but I want to do it in Simone's place. So Romeo said, oh, but that's Simone from DGM. So, you know, like links connecting. And so that's when I started to talk to Romeo. I mean, I knew him, of course, since the tour, but, you know, we never been in touch because, you know, also I am a fan. So I didn't want to bother him as a fanboy, you know?
Yeah.
And I met him at all the Symphony X shows in Italy. I always come and hang with him a few hours. But, you know, other than that, it was pretty much nothing. And then the opportunity came, and then I started to talk him day after day about the drums, about the songs. And he was really kind to give me the opportunity of mixing and producing, basically. Not producing, because he's the producer. But, you know, I really tried to give all my ideas, you know, on everything, like on drum parts, or he recorded bass and guitars in his studio in New Jersey, but he sent me all the raw files. So I had to reamp and create the tone myself. And, you know, to be able to do that without being trusted by a guy that you love as a musician, for me, it's the best experience ever. So,
yeah.
And also with the vocals this time, Dino couldn't fly here because of the pandemic. But I was the middleman, because Dino was recording stuff. He was sending back to me, and I was telling him, hey, I know Romeo that he won't like that stuff. He won't like that phrase. Maybe you should change that in that way. I mean, there's nothing much that you can say to Dino, you know, it's perfect. But you know, it's a matter of taste sometimes. Sure. You know, I know Romeo very well nowadays, and I know what he likes. So I was doing the middleman between them. And then when Dino was done and I was happy, I was sending the stuff to Romeo. And basically, it was 99.9% fine, except for a few English words that I didn't catch because my English is terrible, as you can hear.
Your English isn't so bad.
But yeah, I mean, mixing and recording, especially mixing those records, the part 1 and part 2, is, I think, one of my highlight of my. I mean, I probably did records that sold more, but you know, as a fan of the man himself and of the band, it's like a dream come true to be able to work on these records and becoming friends, because here's one of the cases where when you meet your heroes, they're better than you had imagined before, you know. So
Yeah.
it's really a down-to-earth guy, and I really love spending time with him on the phone and in person. So, and the record is I think the record is amazing. So
it's a great record.
So,
And kudos to
yeah,
you, because it sounds like you don't work on the same DAW that Romeo does. Which DAW do you
totally
use?
different. Actually, totally different system, because I'm on Mac and he's on PC. So we always fight about that. Oh, you should get Cubase. He always about Cubase.
That's what he uses.
And I'm using probably the only one in Italy or in the world that I'm using Digital Performer from Motu.
Yeah.
And it's pretty common in the cinematic world, because it's really great with syncing, you know, videos with audio and all this soundtrack thing. But I think I know only one person in Italy that uses the software, and we speak all the time on the phone because we're the only two persons. But you know, I started with that 20 years ago in the studio where I started working, and you know, there's no point for me now. I can really work without looking at the screen at the keyboard, because I know every shortcut.
Yeah.
And for me to start over with another DAW will be a nightmare, really. So
when you were doing this record, because there's so much other instrumentation, was he sending you like, this is the virtual instrument I used for this, etc., and you had to have a library?
No. He sent me, because otherwise I should have like every library in the world, because Romeo uses all this kind of different instruments. No, he's really great at that. He sent me, it's a lot of files, because sometimes in the cinematic instrumentals you get like dozens and almost hundreds of files, but it's so well organized and so well arranged that sometimes it's easier to mix a song from Romeo with 200 tracks, honestly, than mixing 20 tracks thrash metal from Germany, but the tracks are so chaotic and so bad played that I struggle to do the mix. So it's really, of course, it's difficult, it's challenging, because it's a lot of stuff to merge into a fixed space. But it's really well done. So no, he prints all the virtual instruments to audio.
Okay.
And during these years we also find a way to communicate. So not to communicate, to work a workflow, so that he already does all the levels. The relative level. So when he sends me the file, I know that the staccato strings at the bar 38 has to be that level, because he already did that. So I start from there, and then I tweak stuff, and then he writes me back, oh, I like them more like I did. So it's I mean, it's really easy working with him.
You did. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. I love this record. I love the variety there, because there's obviously some real heavy stuff, but there's some stuff that's virtually just all cinematic, and it's a testament to you as an engineer. Because I remember when I was looking for an engineer to do my record that has some other orchestration, I couldn't find. I found one guy in all of Seattle that had any experience with it, and not that I needed to work with someone that was only in Seattle, but it says something that Romeo would trust you with something so ambitious, and not just that, but that came out amazing. Like, I'm excited for people to hear this record. I know
me too.
They've got some singles out, but I think it's 2 days from now on Friday the whole record drops. So I'll be sure and letting people know. Dino did a great job singing on this record. I've had him on the show before. And you getting to act as a semi-producer because you knew what Romeo liked, just to sort of probably cut down the back and forth. I think that's all really cool. So what's next for you then? Are you just mixing and producing records as you finish writing the next DGM? Is that what's in your immediate future?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I'm always constantly mixing stuff. That's my main job. And sometimes it gets in the way of playing guitar and writing stuff because, you know, when you have stuff to do, deadlines. I'm mixing this great band from Spain. They sing in Spain. It's a sort of power metal thing. And, you know, they have deadlines, so I have to be finished in 2 days. And when it's like that, you know, I don't really have time and the mindset to sit down and writing and composing. So it's always in waves. You know, I have the crazy month of mixing, and then maybe I have a few weeks free. Then I can focus on DGM stuff. Yeah, but nowadays my main focus is to be done with the next one, and I'm actually, it's not a secret. I'm actually writing 2 records at a time with DGM, and I don't know if they will be out at the same time. You know, because my thought in the beginning was to do like Opeth were doing in the past. You know, they were doing one acoustic album, soft album, and one heavy.
Right.
So that was my idea, to write a way more soft. I mean, it's not soft. It's always heavy. I mean, not heavy. It's always rock, progressive. But that's what I'm doing. You know, I find myself writing. One day I'm writing this more like acoustic, Pink Floyd-ish kind of song with maybe a DGM solo in the end. And the other day I'm writing this double bass, the Symphony X kind of style. And I think I want to reach the point where I have enough material for 2 records. And I don't know if they will be out together or like separate in 2 parts, whatever. Because I still don't have any vocal lines or lyrics, so we don't know if it will be a concept, because the second album, as we call in the band, the progressive one, it's really a thematic. I really writing like with the same theme. It's really actually a concept record in music wise, but still we don't have a theme for the lyrics, so we're still talking about that. But that's my main goal for the next 1 year at least. My main focus.
That's exciting. I love concept albums. I don't know if I told you I got to work with John Petrucci to do the novelization of the Astonishing album.
You told me.
I love it when bands take on ambitious narrative ideas and use an album to communicate some sort of story. I think it's cool. I like that would be a real exciting development if that's how you guys decide to take it. So the very last question, Simone, is is there something in your life that you've always wanted to do? Like I call it the mountain you want to climb. Is it, it could be completely non-musical, completely non-artistic, but something you really want to do at some point when time permits?
Oh my God. That's a great question. I don't know. I think it will be that's I don't know, it will sound silly, but my dream is to mix an Yngwie record.
Okay.
really I don't have any much interests outside music, because it's my life, you know, like both my daily job and my passion and my band. It's always music, like 24 hours per day.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I keep thinking of, you know, it's like, Yngwie should do a record with a great modern sound, you know, and I should be the guy to mix it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's my dream. But I never had the chance to meet him. I mean, I saw a lot of gigs, but it was because he's the real rock star in my head, you know.
Yeah.
So it's that's my dream, I think.
Okay, that's a good one. Well, hopefully someone will see this and tell him, and
please.
He'll look you up. I think all of your credits would commend you well to him as an option for a record. I think that would be a cool collaboration. All right, my friend. Well, that's. Oh, wait a minute. I had one last thing I meant to ask you. I saw one of the bands that you worked with. There's this. Folks can see the sheer scope of work that Simone does if you go to his website, which is dominationstudio.com, I think.
Yeah.
So, you know, not to like flood you with a million bands that want you to mix, but you're out there and you're in business. But one of the bands I saw there was Aegis. Is that Aegis project that the guitarist and singer for Theocracy did, or is it something different?
Oh my God, which band?
Aegis.
Which band it is?
AEGIS. I saw it.
I honestly, I don't remember. I don't remember, because sorry for that, but it's really a lot of bands that I worked with, and sometimes maybe it's just I mixed just a single, or I did the mastering, so it's really like a 2 days thing, you know, just a few mails. Maybe I master some great musicians and I don't even know them. So it's really unless the guys are like coming back to me doing more records, then we become of course friends. But otherwise, sometimes it's really like one shot, you know, like, oh, can you master my album, please? Okay, 2 days of work, done.
Yeah.
And you never meet the guy, you never talk to the guy. So I don't know if it's
I'll have to look. The only reason I bring it up is I fell across them recently, and I was pretty impressed with some of the work they do. It's one of those kinds of things where a central songwriter has a vision, and they invite a lot of celebrated musicians to come in and sing or play on the songs. And with this particular project, the money goes is donated, I think, for music education for under privileged kids, I think is the thing. Anyway, well, man, I've kept you for a long time, but you have such an amazing career, and so much music that I think deserves a broader audience. And it's not just because there's a lot of it, but because the attention to the quality is always present, like always, whether it's fully your thing or whether you've been asked to guest somewhere. So thank you so much for spending some time. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
It was real pleasure.
Okay. If you do me one favor, stay on the line until I close the show, and I just want to say a personal goodbye. But for now, take good care, my friend.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.